Irregular Lake Structure Appeals Board for October the 25th, 2016. First, we will have the roll call. I think we've lost one or two here. Let the record show that she's staying, he's going to be?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Let the record show that Mr. Quentin Calhoun, Environmental Management Officer for Lake Lure, is here, present, representing the town. Let the record also show that we have three people from the applicant that are here today. First, we have Jonathan Hinkle. We also have Mr. Kim Warner, and we have this young lady, Harmony Lane. That's here as well. With you're the property owner. Okay. Record also show that Mr. Ron Erickson, Mr. David Butts, Mr. Mark Cook, Mr. Melvin Owensby, Mr. John Kilby, Mr. David Lusk, alternate, and Mr. Rick Stockdale, alternate, is present in the audience. So first thing we'll do is have an approval of the agenda. Anyone see anything, any changes need to be made? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Butts, seconded by Mr. Hook. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved unanimously. Next, we will have the approval of the minutes from the May 24th, 2016 meeting. It's been a while since we've been here for that.
I saw one change in that.
Okay,
Over on page 2,
uh-huh,
go down to where it's in the black,
uh-huh,
where it says, Mr. Ormsby moved the board to find that, and then also down below it, it says that I second the motion.
okay.
And I don't believe I did both. I believe I only made the motion.
Yeah, we only had the 5 of us here that, did we not? That,
Everybody was here, but except for Ron.
were they here? Anybody?
So I don't recall who seconded it, but I know I couldn't have done both.
I'll go back and listen.
Okay. Michelle, go back and listen and make that correction, Melvin.
Okay.
Okay? She'll go back to the recording and listen to that and correct that.
That's all I saw.
Okay, anybody else? See anything else? Okay, with that correction amended, do I have a motion to approve as the amended recommendation?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Owens, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Butts, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay, we will move right on to number 4, and that'd be new business. And this case is LSAV-201-6002, a petition for appeal of an administrative determination resulting in the disapproval of a lake structure permit. The property, tax pin identification number 0230605, is located at 308 Snug Harbor, Lake Lure, North Carolina. All those that plan to testify in this case, please stand. And if you will raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Okay, you may be seated. Let the record show that Quentin Calhoun, Environmental Management Officer, I'm looking for your name again.
My name's not easy. It's Parmalee. Do you need me to spell it for you?
I think I have
It
it.
should be.
You can spell it.
Parmele is my
Okay.
first name, and Calane is C-A-L-A, M as in Mary.
Thank you. I
I
apologize.
kind of do.
I apologize.
Sorry about that. I'm used to it.
Mr. Jonathan Hinkle and Mr. Kim Warner also present. All righty then, ethical considerations. Anyone here had any conflicts of interest in regards to this case?
No.
None here.
None.
None for you, none for me myself. Any ex parte communications on the case?
No.
No.
Nope.
None. Any financial gain applies to anyone in regards to the case?
No.
Nope.
Okay, hearing that, you folks as the applicant have the right to question any one of us, anything about having us dismissed from the case if you like. Did anyone like to do that?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, all righty then.
We love you all.
So with that being said, we will begin with staff presentation. Mr. Calhoun.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is gonna be kind of a long one. This is a little more uncharacteristic than what you guys usually hear from me.
Can I make one more comment I meant to make before we did that?
You may.
I've thought about this a whole lot, and this case a whole lot, and I've studied this a whole lot. And remember, I want us all to remember before we get into this, what it says that it is a petition for appeal of an administrative determination resulting in a disapproval of the lake structure permit. It's not very often we have these. It's not a variance that's being requested or anything like that. What our charge is to hear the town administration side of their points, and to hear the points of the applicant and their representatives, and to determine if the right administrative decision was made on this. Okay, and I just wanted to make sure everybody understood before we get into this, what really, that's what we're doing. So I apologize for.
Not a problem. Okay, Mr. Jonathan Hinkle, Marathon Builders, WNC Incorporated, on behalf of Caldwell Plain, is appealing the decision of the Lake Structure Administrator disapproving a lake structure permit to construct a boathouse. The property, tax pin 0230605, is located at 308 Snow Harbor Circle. Just to give you some background, on August 8th, an application was submitted by Mr. Hinkle on behalf of the claims to construct a boathouse and boardwalk. After initial review, Mr. Hinkle and Mr. Kim Warner, who's the engineer hired to design the structure, were contacted regarding an issue with the structure being partially located in the setback. The drawings were revised to address that issue as requested by the town. But upon further review of the plans showed that the proposed structure projected too far into the lake. In order to justify the projection, Mr. Warner was showing riprap to be placed along the seawall, which is in the setback at the point of the shoreline where the applicant wanted to locate the boathouse, allegedly to obtain a view that would not be possible at any other point along the shoreline. The addition of the riprap attempts to change the shoreline in order to keep the proposed structure out of the setback. Because of the unusual design and skepticism on the part of the Lake Structure Administrator, a meeting was arranged between the Lake Structure Administrator, Commissioner Stephen Weber, and Mr. Warner on August 30th, 2016, to look at the site from the lake and compare the plans to conditions on the ground. That conversation discussed the issues that were found with the plans that were submitted and confirmed what the Lake Structure Administrator felt was a reason to justify disapproval of the permit. On September 9th, 2016, this approval letter was issued stating that the application had been disapproved for the following reasons. An attempt was being made to create usable shoreline where there was no shoreline by adding riprap. The existing seawall determines where the shoreline is. At the proposed location where the primary lake structure would meet the shoreline, the actual shoreline is in the 15-foot setback and is therefore not eligible to be counted as usable shoreline because it falls within the unusable area defined by the setbacks. Riprap is shown on the plan and is what the 30-foot projection is based on rather than the actual shoreline. There is currently no existing riprap extending from the seawall at the proposed location, and permission will be required to install it. But if such permission were granted through permit approval, it would be to satisfy shoreline stabilization requirements, not to provide additional usable shoreline in an area that is already excluded for building purposes because of its location in the 15-foot setback. Such activity is expressly prohibited by the lake structure regulations and does not meet the intent of the shoreline stabilization requirements or the design standards of the lake structure regulations. While it is understandable that the applicant chose the planned location in order to obtain a view, there are other areas along the usable shoreline of the upland lot that have adequate space to build a lake structure that complies with the regulations. So that's the background. The application is complete based on my review. Letters were sent to the adjoining property owners and as well as to the owner and the contractor. And the engineer also received a copy of that as well. We did receive a letter from Dr. Stewart, who is the neighbor on the west side of the property. And I do have a copy of that if the board wishes to see it, or if the applicant wants a copy of that. But the letter was expressing opposition to constructing anything, they said anything, in that cove. Mr. Owens on the east side, he actually came in and we spoke yesterday regarding the case, and he didn't necessarily express opposition, but expressed some concern based on the proposed location. But that was pretty much the extent of the conversation that we had. And I think if there's anything else that I'm leaving out, I think that's pretty well it.
Did he say what his concerns were?
Mainly the projection of the lake and, proximity to the setbacks and that kind of thing, and, how it was being justified.
Any other questions, Mr. Calhoun?
Not at this time. Maybe later, but not now.
Mr. Hook, do you
No, I don't.
have any? Mr. Erickson, Mr. Butts?
No further.
So, do you feel necessary to go over the drawings or anything that to justify your?
If you would like me to.
I think I'd like you to, unless these folks are a lot smarter than me.
Let me figure out the best, probably the best one, but I'm gonna get through here and figure out the one probably gonna explain best what I'm trying to point out here. If you'll turn, in the packet, these pages aren't numbered, but toward the back of the packet, you'll see the face page of the lake structure application, and then the actual letter that was sent by me, the disapproval letter, to Mr. Hinkle. After that letter, you'll see a drawing that will look like this, that has a picture of.
It's on back in our, it's on back in our
Yeah,
book.
it's on the back.
It's about 3 from the back. It's on the 4th page from the back of the book.
Is that the one where you handwritten, usable
Yes.
shoreline? Yes, okay.
Everybody got it? That's it right there.
All right.
You got it?
I'm getting there.
That's it.
You know what I'm talking about? Basically, on the drawing that you have before you, it's showing the proposed structure and the design and layout that was being suggested. You'll see the riprap that's drawn at the corner of the seawall that's shown there in red. That's an existing seawall that was constructed at some point in the past, I don't know when. And according to the regulations, and this was, amended, back in April to, lay out what's considered to be usable shoreline. And usable shoreline is everything minus the setbacks. So if you have 100 feet of shoreline, you would essentially subtract 30 feet, 15 on each side of the property. And that would give you 70 feet of usable shoreline if you were using the 100-foot example. So basically, these setbacks here are shown, and so if you take that away.
So what's the total shoreline on this one?
On this application,
130,
I think that's correct,
139?
139 and a half.
But who's counting up?
So they've got 109 feet of shoreline that's considered usable shoreline. What, in my opinion, this drawing attempts to do is, if that riprap weren't there, then there would be no connection between this lake structure and the shoreline if the seawall is being used as the shoreline. The actual connection that could be made would be several feet toward land, where it actually becomes usable shoreline, where the actual area outside the setbacks begins. By adding the riprap, that creates a situation where you're creating new shoreline to satisfy, to keep from building the structure in the setback. Otherwise, you would be in the setback if you put it against the seawall. And I don't believe that the regulations allow that. I don't think that's what the intent was, the regulations, and it certainly wasn't as far as the riprap consideration. So is there any other questions?
Yes, when you say that there is adequate area along the usable shoreline to locate this, now is that in the area that you've marked with a pen overlaid?
That's correct.
So starting at the tick mark where it hits the red line or the seawall line,
Yes.
yeah, back to the 15-foot setback on the
That's
side?
correct.
Okay.
And there was a previous application approved years ago that I was able to find where a lake structure had been approved, not out in the area that's shown here, but further back inland. It was never constructed for whatever reason. The applicant never did embark on constructing the actual boathouse. So, based on that and just the facts that I have from seeing that application, it makes me feel like that a structure could be built there.
When was that application done?
That was in 04, 2003, March 12th, 2004, well before I became a lake structure administrator.
But if we're talking about precedents, I remember another one where a person tried to, or did, expand on their land out in the lake and built the structure and was eventually required to tear it down.
That's correct.
Other questions for Mr. Calhoun? Any questions for Mr. Calhoun on the Strong? Everyone understands the property, where the property lines are, the beginning, the corners for that lot. Does everyone understand where they are on this drawing?
And I would add, that this is by far the most difficult, permit applications it's ever come across my desk. This one took a lot of time to, sit through and review and really study the regulations. And so this one was a tough one. And I always hate, anytime having to disapprove a permit, but I felt like from staff perspective, I could not let this one go through.
But it was approved at one time, though, right?
Not this one,
Not this
not
one.
this application, no. What was approved before was an entirely different owner, different type of structure,
Different location
different location,
for the structure.
yes.
Just to make sure.
But something come to you, right, to make a different decision? Am I not right on that?
What you have before you is what was brought to me. And the plans that were brought to me are different than what had been approved by a previous lake structure administrator.
In 2004, Bill.
That application,
uh,
that application expired because there was no activity.
That was somebody else that made an application 12 years ago.
Totally different owner
Right.
and everything.
And
And the regs are different then too.
Yeah, correct.
From this one, just so I understand completely.
this is the current one.
This is the riprap,
That's right.
and we're talking this way, or just right there, or all the above.
It could be all the above, depending on how, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of the structure beginning right here, okay? If that riprap is not there, then the projection this way is greater than 30 feet. Because this is the point where it's meeting the shoreline. It doesn't meet the shoreline along this plane here. If it met the shoreline on this plane, then that would change this out here. But where it meets right here, the only way that this is possible is with the riprap. And I don't believe that riprap can be used as a justification for establishing a shoreline in order to escape the requirements of the setback, because this is already considered unusable anyway.
Thank you.
Everybody, I see Mr. Putz looking at the thing, you know, this is, establishing these locations is done by using the property line extensions. As you see on this, on these drawings, that's part of the, what's used as the parameters on where these things can be located. That wooden seawall that's there, that, you know the history of that?
Well, and this is hearsay, because I don't have a complete history on it, but I've been told by multiple people that that seawall is illegal. I don't know, I haven't found any permits specifically related to the seawall, but it's just hearsay that it was constructed illegally. You know, I think regardless of that fact, if that seawall weren't there, and you actually looked at where the 990 is, because there is a 990 line also shown on the plans, you know, that would further change the seawall or change the shoreline and where a structure could actually be located. So I think with the seawall in place, at the very least, it gives the property owner benefit of a doubt and provides additional options that wouldn't be there probably if that seawall wasn't there.
How much further out are they wanting to come past that seawall, that wooden seawall?
As far as at the tip where they're showing the riprap, it's gonna be probably a couple of feet.
But it's pretty much runs with the wooden wall,
Yeah, pretty much.
and the wooden wall's already there?
Yes. And Mr. Warner or Mr. Hinkle would probably, add clarification to that as well.
And has anyone ever, from your knowings, from the town, asked that wooden wall be cut down because it's not?
I've never asked,
Is
and
considered-
I don't know if anyone else has ever asked it or not.
So, in your opinion, the town's had no problem with that wall being there as it existed?
Like I said, it's, what I've heard in hearsay, no one has told me to go out and tear that wall down, or have that wall torn down, or anything like that. It's been, property owners changed a couple times, I think, since.
Is that note revised March 24th, 2004, referring to that seawall that was under construction at that time?
It may have been under construction at the time.
Yeah.
So they may have been building the wall without a permit.
12 years ago.
12 years ago. yeah.
But they're not bringing the riffraff out no further than the wooden wall.
Oh, yeah, well, it's gonna come out further, it's gonna come out far enough to bring the structure out of the setback.
I suggest maybe that we, unless you've got specific other questions for Mr. Calhoun at this point, that we move on to the applicant and let them tell us,
Yeah, I'd like to hear their side.
their, what they have on it, and then we can always, keep the testimony open and go back to Mr. Calhoun if we need to. Does that suit everybody?
Sounds good.
Yes. Sound good to everybody?
Agree.
All righty. Who's up first?
I'm on first.
State
My
your
name
name,
is-
please.
My name is Jonathan Hinkle with Marathon Builders. I live at 268 Firefly Cove. First couple points I'd like to make is that this seawall existed prior to the county's owning this property, and so did that permit, or that application for that boathouse. So they weren't involved in either one of those being installed or applied for.
Right.
We feel like that we respectfully disagree with staff's decision on this matter. I know that I tend to bring things to you that are difficult, and this is the most difficult item. Mr. Warner has designed these plans for us, and he's got a lot of information to give you, and I'm going to turn it over to him because he's got all of these points listed for us to go over point by point on how we determine where we're going to locate this boathouse. So that's your.
Fine.
I got a lot of stuff with me, I'm sorry. Kim Warner, 139 Countrywood Drive, Forest City. Again, I respectfully disagree with Clint on his interpretation of what we've done. Toward the back of your, the documents that you have, you'll see a step-by-step process that we went through to first create the 30-foot limit.
Is that in these drawings?
It's in, yes, it should be in the back, a large T-size drawing, unless it's cut up for y'all.
What number is on the sheet?
I have no idea, I didn't get a copy of it.
This one?
It'd probably be the first large one.
This one?
First. Yeah. This would be one of the ones. That looks like the same thing right there. It's one that has a lot of green on it.
Sheet A3 cut off at the bottom. There's two of them, one of them's not cut off at the bottom. There's A3 on the bottom.
in looking at that sheet, there's no riprap shown on that sheet. The 30-foot curved dimension is the radius at the point.
Hold on just a minute,
Okay.
Kim, just till we get everybody on the same.
The one with the most green on, showing on which one.
A3 at the bottom right
This
there.
one.
It says A3 right here.
A3, it's cut off.
Melvin, you got one that's not cut off, it should have.
Could you get that? Okay.
Some of these are different, aren't they?
Unless they
Yeah,
left
one was
something.
cut off and one wasn't.
Okay.
Didn't mean to inundate you.
No, that's okay, I just wanted to make sure we're all reading out the same hymnal.
All right, what that drawing shows is, you'll notice there's no riprap shown. There's a seawall with a 90-degree corner on it, pretty much a 90-degree, that makes this project unique. There's rarely any other boathouse or property that we know of, because Clint searched to try to find something. And I searched as well in everything that I've done previously. But the right angle corner changes everything for this piece of property, okay? The radius, the construction limit is defined as the distance from the seawall perpendicular to the seawall. And it extends all the way to the property line extension on one side, and on the other side, the other property line extension. The setbacks are not taken into consideration yet. You draw that 30-foot line, which where the shoreline is straight, it's basically straight out there, and where it's curved, there's a radius, okay? Some surveyors draw this incorrectly, but this is correctly drawn. In other words, if you stand on that line, on that dotted line, you will be able to just barely touch some part of the shore, the seawall, with that line, okay?
Now, you're talking about this line right here,
No, the big curved line,
the big curved line.
the big curved line, that is called, I call it the 30-foot construction limit. They call it construction boundary. I'm not sure what it's actually called, but I don't think it has a name on there, but it basically limits you. You cannot go out any farther than that, okay? So that is the first limit that we've established, okay? The second limit that you establish is the 15-foot setback from the property line extensions. And you'll see on your drawing, the green does not go all the way to the property line. In other words, it's just shaded from that 15-foot setback line. And it goes back and hits that seawall at a pretty good distance of shoreline measurement. It's more than 15 feet. It's about 35 feet, I think. So on your paper, we contend, rightly so, that shaded area is where we can construct. Now, in Clint's presentation, he indicated that the line is from the point where the setback line hits the seawall. He's measuring there and trying to say that the 30-foot limit ought to be there or something. I don't totally understand what his point is there. But I'm gonna show you how the riprap plays into this eventually. But that's basically the area that we can use. And what we've done is we've added riprap, which is a requirement for all lake structures, have to have a riprap installed against the seawall, or if there's no seawall there, then you have to put it on the property. It has to go up, if there's no seawall there, it has to go up to 993, which is 3 feet above water height. And it's supposed to be installed on a 2-to-1 slope, which is about like this. In other words, 2 out, 1 up. When you install the riprap, which is a requirement, you effectively limit where a boat can pull in because that riprap is in the way. So we have taken, because the 990 contour, which is the definition of the shoreline, the 990 contour hits the riprap. So we measure from there. Okay? So number one, we're required to put in a riprap. Number two, there is a contour line that can be drawn at that point where the water hits the riprap. And that, by definition, and it's loosely defined in here, I have a list of definitions, but the distance from the shoreline is one of the definitions that's in the lake structures. It says it's measured from the contour elevation of 990 feet MSL. And a lot of surveyors don't put this on their maps because they're not familiar with Lake Lure shoreline, but I make them put it on our maps that we get, because basically, we need it to be able to determine the setbacks and that kind of thing. As far as the effect of the riprap that it has on what we're doing, I have a handout here that I'd like to put on the record that's not in your packet. It's 2 pages.
Let me look at that again. Determine.
Yes.
You have a copy of this?
No.
And this is just to help justify the riprap, is that?
I'm gonna explain how it changes what we showed. The first page is how we presented it for the permit.
Okay,
And the second page is if the riprap were not there.
okay.
Okay?
We will label this one, applicant exhibit A.
My only intention here is I think it was explained earlier by Clint that the riprap was making a lot of difference in what we're proposing. And the first page is how we presented it for our application, with the 30-foot construction limit measured back to the red line that's labeled shoreline at the edge of the 2-to-1 slope riprap that we plan to install based on requirements by the town. The second page shows the 2 lines and how much difference the boathouse location would make. In other words, the radius that's in red it comes right off of the seawall, and the riprap is not included in that particular line. Now, the square line that's out there is what is sometimes done by surveyors when there's a function in AutoCAD that they can push that is offset, and it makes the square line like that when they put it on there. And that's incorrect, and I just want to show you that does occur and has occurred on the 35-foot lines going back on shore and the ones going out of the water. The distance is probably 4.5 feet, just because of the angle of the curve. In other words, this difference between the seawall and the shoreline is basically 4 feet. So instead of being 34 feet or 30 feet from the the seawall is 34 feet, is what it amounts to. But we actually did the measurement from the shoreline. So you can see that if anybody had a piece of property like this where there was a right angle curve, then you would have a big sweeping curve where you could put a boathouse. And the fact that it appears to be quote unquote out in the lake is immaterial. The next door neighbor's boathouse is out at this same position, and he's about 15 feet back from this property line extension. It doesn't show up on this drawing, but he's got a boathouse right there and it's sitting out there, just like that. So
The
I'm not
property,
sure,
the Owens property on the
on the east side.
east side?
I don't know which,
Is that, I thought I might be the one that knew the name.
it's the one on the east side.
Right.
They've got a boathouse out there, and it's situated probably 30 feet away from where we're proposing this boathouse be located, because they're about 15 feet back from the property line extension as well. But I don't have a survey. So the only other thing that I wanted to point out was that this, and I'm gonna have another document that these are 4 pages of boathouses that were permitted and approved with setbacks measured from the edge of the riprap installed as a requirement by the town.
Can I have one of those?
Yes,
Well,
as soon as he
hold on,
approves it.
hold on just a second, I want
I did not mean to leave all these names on here. Some of them show up as who they are. I would not like that to be a part of the record. It's just boathouses that I've submitted.
Okay, I'll accept this as applicant exhibit B.
In each case, we show the riprap as being 4 feet away from the seawall, based on the requirement for it to be at 992 and installed on a 2-to-1 slope. That gives you 4 feet. Some of these, the first, I put them in oldest to newest. The first one was in 2009. The second one was 2011. The third one was 2015, and the fourth one was in March of this year. You can argue, why we did it. We did it because the town requires it, and it interferes with docking of boats and that kind of thing. So the town in the past has seen fit to allow the measurement to be taken from that point. I'll answer any questions you have. To clarify a little bit more, There's nothing in the regulations that says that a boathouse, a pier cannot be angled into the water. Okay, as long as it complies with the 30-foot limit and the 15-foot setback, then there's no question that it's legal, because you measure perpendicular to the shoreline where the limit is. So you can see that we are outside that limit, and we've kept away from it. We don't have our dock right against the shoreline. All of that is legally done. In other words, we're out of the setback.
Questions for Mr. Warner?
I welcome questions.
I'm probably missing some of the dimensions, but how long is the wooden seawall, Mr. Warner?
To be honest with you, I don't know. The whole property is 139 feet, and I don't have one of the full-size pages.
So I guess where I'm going is the desire to have this exact size on this exact angle, wouldn't it be easier just to build it right off the existing seawall?
It would be nice if we were against the seawall. That's the correction that I made early on when I first submitted the permit. Clint pointed out that I was in the setback in that area from the 90-degree corner all the way back to where that 15-foot setback hits the seawall. So we basically took all that deck out of there and just created a gap so that we would be out of the 15-foot setback.
Did you consider, asking for a variance to be able to do that?
We didn't need to. We felt like we complied with the rules, so there's no need for a variance. Oh, you're saying to build one in it?
In the
Yes.
setback.
Therefore, it would move the boathouse back.
No, the only thing we would consider doing is filling up that gap between the 15-foot setback line and the seawall where there's no deck. Okay?
Moving it to the east or just filling that in?
Filling that in. It's open space right there right now. But it's not objectionable. But that's what, we showed that filled in to start with the boathouse in the same place. And I had stopped the setback line at an extension of the shoreline up there near that 90-degree corner. But Clint pointed out I needed to let it come all the way back and hit the seawall, which I did, and then we vacated all that structure that was between the setback line and the seawall, so it's open.
Well, what I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around is the fact that I don't know what the dimensions from the corner of the 90-degree turn on the seawall to the front east corner of the boathouse and deck. How many feet is that?
That'd be a couple feet less than 30 feet.
Okay, so there's 28 feet of that that's actually fronting the adjoining property owner's property, correct?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, it's nothing, if the shoreline from the neighbor's house were continuing across straight rather than turning back 90 degrees into the cove, then it would be 15 feet away from the property line extension, and his boathouse is 30 feet away from this proposed boathouse on the other side of the property line extension by 15 feet or so. I did not measure it, but it looked like it could be as much as 20 feet, but I don't think it was that much. On the GIS photo is where I looked at it. So, what are you having a problem with wrapping your hand around,
Well, just the fact that it extends out. If this property, I don't know where the property line and stuff is on this adjoining property here, but
well, his property line is the same, is common to this
Common property
one.
right. So his line goes straight on down here.
Yes. In other words, the line, this is his common line.
Right.
His property is here.
Right, and all the way down here.
Right. But his actually goes this way.
Right. So I
Okay?
guess,
And his boathouse is here.
yeah, his boathouse is, if we could extend this around here.
No, his boathouse is here. Okay,
So is it
15
gonna-
feet away from this line, his boathouse is here. This is fairly straight right there.
So is that gonna obstruct his view?
Now, wait a minute, I'm not sure,
I'm not sure obstructing his view should be considered.
I still disagree with you, Kim, come here.
Okay.
I thought that was. Look at the contours.
So, his boathouse is, this is the shoreline, this is the lake,
Yep.
this is his house is up here.
No, his house is over here.
Well, maybe it's a different house, I may be thinking it's a different house then.
Yeah. I have it. But this
Let me
shoreline
ask-
continues around here, and his boathouse is
But no,
right
the
here.
shoreline don't go this way. The shoreline, after this goes that way.
You can't do riprap to extend it.
There's the house, there's the house.
That's the corner of his boathouse right there. This doesn't align perfectly, should be out here farther.
Is this,
That's the house. Right.
This is his boathouse right there.
okay.
Comes out so far.
Barely on the edge of that middle.
Very bottom. You know what I'm saying?
Just keep our discussions out to everybody, please. I got you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Clear as mud to me. Questions, comments, questions to ask Mr. Warner? Or
What are the alternatives?
That's not what we do.
No.
Our charge is to determine if I think Clint made the right determination on whether this is approved or whether it's not right on what we approved.
Are we being asked, Mr. Chairman, to consider Exhibit A as an alternative to what they're showing?
We're not considering alternatives.
All right.
Our only charge is to determine if we agree that Clint has made the right decision in disallowing this project as it is on the paper.
Okay,
That's the only thing we're here to do, period.
so this doesn't mean anything?
Well,
as far as
it
this-
doesn't mean anything other than him making his point that he's right
Right. I
and
understand.
that he's saying Clint's not right. That's what this he's showing with these, and he's showing with Exhibit B that how other projects were measured using the riprap that's required by the town as the starting line.
Okay.
Well, it should be the 990 as defined shoreline, right? And the riprap doesn't make a difference, other than the riprap's established at 990, correct?
Well, that's, I guess, the whole argument when it comes to establishing 990. When you put riprap in there, essentially, if you're, wanting to, get technical, the 990 moves to wherever that riprap edge comes. But I would like to, clarify something if I may. The regulations do not require riprap. The regulations require shoreline stabilization. That can be a seawall, it can be riprap. We do not say that you have to add riprap if you have a lake structure. What we say is that you have to stabilize the shoreline. Now, what we do say is that riprap is a way to protect your shoreline. So a property owner, by placing riprap, is investing in their seawall's future by making sure that it's protected. So yes, it is a recommended measure, but we do not require it. And in this case, riprap, without making the argument that riprap is needed or not, it's kind of a moot point. The fact of the matter is riprap is being used to manipulate the shoreline in such a way that it takes that structure out of the setback, whereas otherwise it would be in the setback.
Now, I need to speak to that because I think Clint is in error in that statement because you saw the pictures, the two pictures there of one with riprap and one without the riprap. Boathouse is in the same place, basically. It's beyond the 15-foot line. And it is angled and meets the shoreline at a point that's down the way. But it's angled significantly, but it's still within the 30 feet. I'm not asking to be outside of 30 feet.
Based on the blue line that's 990, you're within 30 feet, correct?
Based on the shoreline,
At 990 as surveyed, on sheet A3.
there's two 990s there because there's actually water behind some of that seawall.
So would it be, I'm not seeing a second 990.
It's a shoreline.
It's the blue one.
It's labeled shoreline because it's where it hits the seawall.
What is that?
So is the seawall your measurement for 30 or the 990? I guess I'm seeing, so when I'm, this is the one you're referring to this set of drawings here?
There is, one of the drawings has a red line that goes along the edge of the seawall and it's marked shoreline.
Yes.
Okay, that is where all the measurements come from, except where there's riprap shown, then it comes from the edge of the riprap, where that line continues around at 990.
So it is from the seawall with the exception of the riprap, and then the riprap, where the riprap comes to 990, is then you're 30 feet out from there. Okay.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask questions of Clint as well?
Yes, sir.
as-
You certainly may.
All right, Clint, I think I asked before, where is the building allowed in your interpretation along the usable shoreline?
In my interpretation,
Yes.
you go back to that drawing that I showed you before.
Yes.
From the setback meets the upland property, if you're using that projection line,
Right,
where that setback basically starts into the water.
yes.
From there around to the other setback at the point where it leaves land and goes into the water.
Okay,
That
so,
is what I see as the usable shoreline.
I see. So the whole
And
building.
we are not, just to clarify, we are not outside of that usable shoreline. We don't touch it anywhere else.
And see, I disagree with that. And I'll tell you, I'll show you why. If we're using the same, sheet that Mr. Warner's pointing out,
A3.
A through, this area is beyond the point that's shown on there, point where the setback meets.
Where are you talking about, Clint?
From there up, even though it's shoreline, it's still unusable. So it means you can't use that portion to project your 30 feet. Your 30 feet can only be projected from the area of usable shoreline that you have. You can't project something off of an area that you can't use.
Now, that's not,
With the addition of the riprap, if you go back to Exhibit A, if you're looking at this structure, measuring it from usable shoreline, if you were measuring from this point to this point, that is longer
Right.
than 30 feet.
It's about 70 feet.
I don't know if it's quite that long, but it's pretty long. And that was my justification for why it projects too far. With the riprap, the addition of the riprap, okay, now you've got another point that you can take a 35-foot reading from, so that would, to Kim's point, might be 35 feet. But what I'm saying is you can't add riprap there in order to give you more leeway on your projection. Not in this case. I do not believe that that's what the intent of the regulation is.
okay, nowhere in the regulations does it say that you can measure the 30-foot on the setback line. Nowhere does it say that.
Do you agree with that?
We're not saying, I'm not stipulating where you measure the 30 foot from, other than you have to use it, you will be measuring from the usable shoreline that you have, the area that you could locate a structure in, that's gonna be where you're gonna determine your projection from.
Yeah.
You can't determine it from a section that's not usable.
Section B states that, no structure shall be placed in the water more than 30 feet or a third the distance to the opposite shore, whichever is less, as measured to and from the shoreline. Shoreline is defined as 990. So that's
shoreline, not usable shoreline, correct?
the regulation reads shoreline.
Yes.
Right.
That's the basis for my argument. Thank you for reading that.
I'm not trying to be difficult, I just don't know. I mean, that's pretty complicated.
But if you go into the definitions, we do have, what shoreline is and what usable shoreline is.
Right.
So you can't build a structure in an area that's not usable, which would be setbacks.
And on the same section, Clint, then my confusion is the next line. For the purpose of positioning lake structures on an irregular boundary, this seems irregular to me, shoreline shall be defined as a straight line between the two widest points. Isn't the two widest points, the straight line, the boardwalk? Is it supposed to be straight along the existing wooden wall versus the angled out? Or am I reading that all wrong?
And see, I think in this case, it takes the irregular shoreline argument out, because where the irregularity is in the shoreline, that all is inside the setback. See, you wouldn't be able to put a structure, you wouldn't be able to locate a structure there. Regardless of, take the riprap out of the picture, you would not be able to locate any portion of that structure there without a variance.
We feel like irregular shoreline is not defined, so we don't contend that this is an irregular shoreline.
Well, here's what I suggest that we do. I suggest that we take 5 minutes. I caution everyone about conversations about what we're talking about and doing with here, other than what we say up here on record. No asking anyone any questions or giving anyone your opinion, other than if it's something you gotta go to the bathroom, and then that'll work. But outside of that, we don't need to say anything. So we'll come back and start back at 5 minutes till 4. That's a little more than 5 minutes. At 3:55, we will come back. Okay.